Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, and I'm joined by my two co-hosts, Michael Hall and Michael Reed. Thank you for joining us on this Victory Monday after Washington won 23-21. The Burgundy Zone is a part of the Frederick Podcast Network. You can find out more by going to www.listenfrederick.com. We are rejoined from across the pond late at night, Mr. Mark Bullock. Thank you for joining us on this Victory Monday, sir. How are you feeling?
I'm doing well. It's obviously a lot nicer to be joining you guys after a win rather than the start of the season when they were losing. So it's quite nice to join after a win.
Not only losing, we were getting dominated in early games this season, like the Detroit game in week 3. After that, God.
And so judging by everyone's kind of energy on the past 2 weeks, the fact that the Commanders are 3-4 is kind of crazy to think about looking back 2 weeks ago. But Mark, I want to get your opinion on this game yesterday. They won 23-21. Taylor Heinecke was very bad in the first half. He had a touchdown pass to Antonio Gibson, but he had turnover-worthy plays. He was a completely different animal in the second half. So in your opinion, after watching the film, what was the biggest difference between the halves?
Well, obviously there wasn't quite so many bad decisions in the second half. It was a really weird game to go back and watch because watching back that first half, it was quite possibly the worst first half I've seen from a quarterback in Washington in all the time I've been covering the football team, because there were so many interceptable passes and the Packers got their hands on so many balls that they just didn't hold on to, and it could quite easily have been, 3 interceptions in the first 10 passes, and we wouldn't have been able to debate like, oh, that was an unlucky one or anything like that. They were bad throws. So the game could have been out of reach before halftime quite easily. So there is that aspect of it. But the second half, he obviously calmed down a little bit, and he started throwing with better rhythm. He was throwing with a lot more anticipation. In the first half, he was late on quite a few throws, and we saw him throw behind receivers, which was a tendency he had last year. But in the second half, he was anticipating throws a lot better, trusting his receivers to go make plays, and then those guys did. Terry McLaurin went and made plays for him. Woo. Curtis Samuel went and made plays for him. Antonio Gibson went and made plays for him. So those guys repaid that faith in them, and that led to some success. So I think calming down and throwing with much more anticipation rather than being late on throws was the big turnaround for him. But it was a very weird game to kind of evaluate watching back.
It was a rusty first half for Taylor.
Right. That first half literally gave me flashbacks of Tim Hasselbeck versus Miami many moons ago. If you guys remember that, the infamous 0.0 passer rating.
Yeah,
game.
Dude. I remember.
But this defense really kept Washington in the game, and really, I believe that they won us the game in terms of over the full 4 quarters, just holding Aaron Rodgers and Co in check. This game plan I've seen a lot of people say from Jack Del Rio was very Manila. Was his game plan smart? And do you think that this is going to be something that we continue to see?
I guess you could say it was smart. I would say the success they had was more down to how bad the Packers offense was. And I don't want to take any credit away from the defense. Like, there were players that played well in that defense. And I thought Jamin Davis had a good game. I thought Cam Curl had a good game. And there was quite a few players that had decent games and decent outings. And, anytime you can stop Aaron Rodgers and you hold him to 21 points or less than that, because obviously there was the pick 6, you have to be very happy with that, because Aaron Rodgers is still a very, very good quarterback. But it's not the same Packers offense that we've come to know from Aaron Rodgers. He's obviously not playing to his standard. He doesn't really have any quality receivers that he can trust to go to. And the offensive line is a mess right now. So I feel like it was more a case of they were vanilla because they didn't need to do anything else. The Packers themselves were very vanilla. Like, all that they were completing were short passes to the flat. And there's not much to be done to that. You just have to kind of rally out there and make those tackles. So I don't think it was some genius game plan from Jack Del Rio. And I say that knowing that the defense has played a lot better the last few weeks. The defensive line really stepped up. We've seen the linebackers, Jamie Davis and Cole Holcomb, have been playing really well. And we've seen Cam Curl's made a huge difference since he come back. But I don't necessarily feel like this was the defense's best game. I feel like they played fine. I feel like the Packers were more just killing themselves more than anything else.
Right. And talking about game plans, flipping to the other side of the ball, it seemed that Scott Turner's game plan yesterday was to feed Antonio Gibson, get them a lot of touches, him and Brian Robinson in the run game. Do you think that as long as Taylor's the quarterback, and maybe if they go back to Wentz at some point, that the path to success for Washington is going to be kind of just pound that rock, ball control type of offense? Or do you think it needs to just kind of open it up and spread it out so they actually can put some more points on the board?
I think with Wentz is such a high variance quarterback, and this is a thing I've been playing around with in my head for a few weeks, that he's such a high variance quarterback that if you try to play that ball control game where you're running the ball, you're trying to get into third and manageable, like we've seen Wentz miss those throws on 3rd and short and 3rd and 5, and they'd not been able to convert, and then they go 3 and out. And that ball control game, the Colts tried that all last year with Carson Wentz to try to limit the variance that he has, and it just didn't work for the Colts, and it wasn't working for Washington. And I kind of feel like when you go with Wentz, you kind of have to lean into, he's such high variance, you have to live off of those explosive plays. You have to basically give him enough opportunities to make explosive plays to offset the negative plays that he does have. Heinecke is different. We saw that last year when they had that 4-game win streak, that kind of every defensive head coach's dream style of offense, where it's ball control, it's run the ball, it's stay ahead of the chains, it's long drives, and it's just give the quarterback easy conversions on 3rd and short. That is a game plan that works for most quarterbacks and would work for most people, but it especially helps quarterbacks that do have limitations like Heinecke does. So if they're able to do that, then great. And that clearly was the path for success for them when they won that 4-game win streak last year, and it was the path for success for them yesterday. So, I think there is something to it, but I don't think it's necessarily the offense that they want to run or should run with Wentz, because I don't see Wentz hitting the underneath stuff consistently enough to be able to sustain those drives the way that Heinecke was able to yesterday.
Absolutely. He kept those late downs short. On those second downs, Brian Robinson was crucial. Caught a couple passes that made things a lot easier. But the offense on the ground rushed 166 yards, which is incredible, and they only gave up 1 sack on the day. So, Mark, is the O-line doing better, or is Taylor doing more?
I think the offensive line... I don't think the offensive line the past few weeks has played as bad as everyone necessarily thinks they have. I think there's been some factors that made them look worse. There's been some calls that, the protection scheme's just been out-schemed, and sometimes that happens. Sometimes the defense knows a tendency and gets the right call. There's been some plays where some guys do just get beat, and we saw with Norwell had that horrible series a few weeks ago where he was just getting beat play after play. And
the series we do not speak of.
So they have had some bad plays in there, but I don't think on the whole, I don't think it's been as bad as people have made out to be. Yesterday, I thought the right side of the line really struggled. Sadiq Charles, particularly in pass protection, Charles and Cornelius Lucas had a few plays where they struggled, and Heinecke is obviously more mobile. Being more mobile can be a bit of a curse, because sometimes a quarterback can end up drifting backwards and running around, and as an offensive lineman, it's really hard to block a quarterback that you don't know where he is. When the quarterback stays in his spot in the pocket, you know that you can run a guy around him and he can step up and avoid it. And actually, Carson Wentz's tendency is that he drifts backwards, and that led to a lot of sacks because he was drifting backwards, and guys like Sam Cosmi thought he was running the guy around him, and in fact, he was running him into him. So Heinecke, what he did do better was step up in the pocket, and I think he had a really nice 3rd and 2 conversion to Armani Rogers over the middle, where they had 2 rushes off the right side, and he stepped up and kept his eyes down the field and flinged it in there. And I thought those were the kind of plays that Heinecke was doing really well that helped the offensive line. And the offensive line then kind of got into a rhythm, and in general, I thought they played all right. So I think that you'd hope Sam Cosmi can come back and he's healthy and he can continue on his path of development and improve. And obviously, you'd like to see Sadiq Charles take a step forward. So they have some areas that they do need to improve, but I don't think it's the worst group in the NFL, like some fans in my mentions have been mentioning.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's amazing to see too, like you said, just the difference between having Wentz back there and having Heinecke back there. It just, the O-line, like you said, they struggled at times yesterday, but they definitely looked a lot better, I think, with the quarterback who was getting the ball out of his hands a little bit faster and not dropping back as far as you noted, kind of drifting backwards. But we know about Taylor Heinecke, we know about Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel had a big game. Who was kind of an undercover hero? Who do you think had a big game yesterday that nobody's really talking about?
Well, the big guys kind of stepped up, as we mentioned, McLaurin and Samuel. I thought Antonio Gibson with his role was really good, where he's not carrying the heavy workload as much, and that's kind of Brian Robinson's role, and then Gibson's fresher for when he does get the ball. And I thought we saw him running with a lot more urgency, and it was kind of noticeable to me that he was more fired up after plays. He'd pick up a first down and he was really flexing for the fans and raising his hands and getting the cheering and that kind of thing. So he was really pumped up and he seems to be enjoying that role. I thought Amari Rogers had a few clutch catches as well. Yeah. He made some nice catches on, I mentioned the third down play earlier, and actually he had the pass that seemed to settle Heinecke down. I've said on Twitter earlier today, I was noting down the number of passes Heinecke was making, and it was the 19th pass of the game when Heinecke finally seemed to settle and be like, okay, I'm ready. And that pass was just a simple check down to Rogers underneath, and Rogers made a tackle and made a guy miss and broke a tackle and picked up a first down on 2nd and long. So
he also was in a wildcat. He also led the wildcat formation up in the red zone as well.
Yeah, that was an interesting look, and that's something that might be a little bit more fun to dig into if they can build a little package around that, especially in the red zone where those kind of plays can kind of be even more valuable. So yeah, I thought he kind of stood out as a guy that made some plays, but I think the real highlights were the main three playmakers that you kind of want, that they're paying the money to, McLaurin and Samuel, and obviously Gibson as well.
Yeah, definitely. And earlier you mentioned that the linebackers, the defense as a whole has been playing better, but especially the linebackers have been flashing a little bit more. What have you been seeing that they've been doing especially well as of late to kind of warrant the, I guess, praise that they've kind of been deserving lately?
Yeah, I think Jamin Davis has stepped up significantly, and that kind of has taken the pressure off Holcomb a bit, because Holcomb for quite a while there was the only linebacker holding that group together, and that's a lot of pressure to put on one linebacker, and I think he was struggling a little bit to start the season, and we started to see Jamin Davis step up, and he's obviously playing a lot faster than he has been, and he's starting to see things a lot quicker and react a lot quicker, and not just play faster, but more physical as well. And last year he was reluctant to take on offensive linemen and really try to beat blockers. He was trying to kind of run around them, and that would lead to him getting run out of a gap. Whereas now he is more than willing to just run straight up, take on a blocker, kind of stand him up and shed the block and fill the lane. So he kind of has a different mindset now, where he's a lot more physical and he's playing a lot quicker, and sometimes he still gets his read a little bit wrong, but when you're playing a lot faster and more physical, more often than not he's going to still get it right, and he's going to make more of an impact. So I think Jamin Davis has really stepped up, and that has taken the pressure off Cole Holcomb, and Holcomb now doesn't have to be the only guy making plays, and that has kind of let him play a little bit freer as well. And I think it was the Bears game. He was outstanding. He made 14, 15 tackles or something like that. And so he's had a good string of games where he is all over the field making plays. So those two have really stepped up, and it's encouraging to see, but it's also worrisome that they don't have much depth behind them. So hopefully those guys stay healthy.
Yeah, and then Cam Curl obviously was a huge addition as well. Coming back from his injury, obviously it helped a lot with the linebackers. He was second in the team in tackles yesterday behind Holcomb with 7, and Holcomb had 9 tackles. But to wrap this up, Mark, I only have a couple more questions for you. Talk to me about the second-year defensive starters that were out there. Obviously, Benjamin St-Juste has been elevated to starting on the opposite side of Kendall Fuller. I thought he had a great game yesterday. Then flip side with Derek Forrest as well, been contributing a lot on this defense. How do you think they have played yesterday?
Yeah, it's interesting to see Forrest. I haven't seen snap counts yet, but I was just watching back the defensive film just before we were starting this, and it felt like he was playing a lot more in base packages than Bobby McCain was, and I'd need to see the snap counts to see whether that's true. But McCain's been basically playing 100% of the snaps so far this season, and Forrest has been the guy that comes in when they go to that 3 safety package. Whereas yesterday I noticed quite a few plays where it was just Curl and Forrest there, and then no McCain on the field. So I do wonder if they've made kind of a switch there.
Yeah, Bobby McCain had 53 snaps, so 98%, with Derek Forrest at a 72 with 39 snaps. So he played 72%.
Right, okay. So McCain was still playing a lot, but it felt like I saw some plays where Forrest and Curl were back there, and so it'll be interesting to see if that continues, whether Forrest can start eating into some of the snaps from McCain, or if they keep playing this 3 safety look, which has worked for them. So Forrest is playing really well, which has taken me by surprise, because given that after they drafted him, basically everyone said, yeah, he's starting on special teams and we're not too worried about him on defense. It kind of laid out this path that he's just going to be their special teams guy. And the fact that he has a year later become this kind of almost key contributor on defense is a great testament to how he's developed. So that's very encouraging. St-Juste is someone I'm still probably lower on than most Washington fans. I can see there is obviously potential there, and you love the length and the ability to and the quickness, the quick feet to be able to flip his hips and turn and run with people, and the length is obviously a good trait, but I think he still can get himself in trouble a little bit. He can still get a little bit grabby, a little bit handsy. We saw that yesterday where there was that deep ball. Yeah, there was that deep ball and he was grabbing on, but fortunately the ball was about 20 yards over the receiver's head, so it was uncatchable. But he was still grabby and would have got called for it had the ball been anywhere near the receiver. And there was a few plays where he's still, he's not quite right. He's still a little bit off of guys, and he's not necessarily picking up the right receiver at certain times. And when it's man coverage, he can jam a guy, but sometimes his hand will get too high and it'll be a hands to the face penalty. Like on that last drive, that 3rd and 2, he gave up that conversion. So yes, he's a young player, obviously, and he missed a lot of his rookie year because of the concussion. So we have to take that into consideration. So he's still got a ways to go, and then there is potential there, but I think for me, it's worth acknowledging that there is still a ways to go. And yes, he has played better than William Jackson out there, but that was kind of a low bar with the way Jackson was playing. And so I wouldn't get carried away with saying he's, their next best corner. Like he still has a ways to go in his development, and hopefully he gets there, but there's still time to go for that.
Absolutely agree with you there. Now, let's look ahead towards the last question I have for you, Mark, before I let you out of here and go to bed, of course, because it's too late where you guys are. But last question, looking ahead towards the season now, Taylor Heinecke stepping in, knowing that Chase Young is going to return at some point, possibly Logan Thomas and John Bates. Obviously, we know Cole Turner is concussed at the moment. What is your outlook for this season? Is your mind changing after 2 weeks ago? Where do you think this win total could be at the end of the season? I know a lot of people don't like to do predictions, but just on your mindset, has it changed at all over the past 2 weeks?
I mean, it's maybe changed a little bit.
Okay.
I still kind of felt like they were going to be around about a 500 team, and that's not too far off of what we thought they should be going into the season. I thought they should. The way Rivera had built them up going into the season, and he'd said this whole offseason, 3rd year is the year we take the step forward, and we're making this big play for a quarterback, and they brought in Wentz, and they were fully behind him and all of that. It felt like they needed to take this step forward, and Rivera had kind of put that pressure on himself. And obviously going 2-4 to start the season doesn't really
Right.
Give any kind of suggestion that they are ready to take that step forward. But obviously now we're seeing the Colts are changing their quarterback, and we play the Colts this week, and that gives them a better chance. And there'll be other games this season where they'll have a chance, and if they can get onto a little winning run, then that's going to give them a little bit of a boost and feeling confident and playing faster, and give them more of a chance against teams that they shouldn't necessarily win against. So I think they can get to around 500. Does getting to 500 do anything for them? I don't know. But that's a different question that that leads into a whole different discussion. But I think they can get to around 500. And in this division, I don't think that is the way the Giants and Eagles and Cowboys have come out playing. I don't think that gets them to the playoffs. So we'll see about that. But yeah, I still think they'll win a few more games and they'll get to around 500.
I love to hear that, Mark. I love the optimism coming out, just vibing off of you. I feel the energy, Mark. Before we let you out of here and go to sleep, if you would just like to plug your social media handle, just in case anybody watching hasn't followed you yet and would like to.
Yeah, my Twitter handle is @MarkBullockNFL, and my Substack work is on substack.markbullock.com, and that's where you can see all of my breakdowns and stuff.
Absolutely one of the best breakdowns on the web right now. Make sure you guys go and check that out. Mark does a great detailed job of being able to pick play-by-play and giving you a good evidence of what's happening. Thank you, Mark. Have a good night, brother. Enjoy the victory Monday.
Of course. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Mark. All right, everybody. We just spoke with the man, Mr. Mark Bullock.
Yeah, always so good. You're right. He does have some of the best breakdowns ever.
He's very, very good at being able to break down the game of football. But before we get into our next guest and the fan questions that are submitted, I want to get your guys game beers, baby. Game beers and chores if you have any. So, Reed, if you want to start us off with a game beer, who's getting one?
You know what? This might be a cop out, and I know some people might not agree with it, but I'm gonna go down the road of Jack Del Rio, just in general, baby. I know. Look, you can say he called a very manila game plan. He didn't have to do much, and good. That's how it should be. He understands his team's strengths. He rushed 4 people. He had 7 back in coverage, and that was exactly what it took to get this job done. And I think he deserves a lot more credit than he's getting right now, because this defense is completely turned around after this Detroit game. It seems like, and they're the strength of this team. And we're still waiting to get a guy named Chase Young back. So Jack Del Rio, have yourself a beer. I'm sure you're going to have about 30 of them, because you just seem like that kind of guy.
Why does he seem like that kind of guy? Just because he's an old white guy?
Oh, yeah.
Racist?
Yeah.
No, but for me, who's getting a game beer? It's none other than Taylor Heinecke. Going 20 of 33, 201 yards, 2 touchdowns and an interception. The way that he turned around his play in that second half was masterful. Putting himself on line, being able to put that ball for Terry McLaurin, that was a huge, energizing play. Like, when we made that, the Colonel, I remember looking at me saying, like, we could win this game. And, like, that was the kind of change of the energy and emotion that play was. And it was such a great job by everybody all around. Terry McLaurin getting in front of Jair Alexander. I love the stare down. We look back at him. Jair didn't even want to look back. I'm scared to look back at Terry right now. Because Terry was burning a hole through him in the back of his jersey. But for me, it's Taylor Heinecke. He grew up a Packers fan. His dad was a huge Packers fan. And he learned from Brett Favre. He really studied Aaron Rodgers, had a lot of respect for them, not getting the W last year, falling short in the red zone. They were only 1 for 4 in the red zone in this game as well, but they were able to get the victory. So for me, it's Taylor. Enjoy the beer, man. I know you drank one in the parking lot. I saw that interview. Great job. You deserve it. Don't kick your feet back, because I need you back in the film room going over the Colts defense this weekend. But enjoy yourself a beer while you're watching film, brother. You earned it.
Yeah, real fast. Taylor, the most impressive thing is, like, his numbers, like when you read them off, like, what was it, 20 of 33? Like, it's not too bad. It was a decent game. But if you look at the first half, oh my God, like, it's incredible his second half compared to the first half. Like, it
really was. And Hall, before you go, make sure you turn down your headphone volume.
Yeah, I turned it down. I just saw your message.
Cool.
Yeah, so my guy to get a game beer is going to be my guy that I've been a fan of since we drafted him.
Oh, man.
So, got to shout him out. My man Gibson, Antonio Gibson, had 10 carries for 59 yards, which is a 5.9 average. Take that any day of the week, especially on Sundays. And he had 3 receptions. I think it was for 18 yards or something like that. But, of course, he had the touchdown to lead us to the victory, obviously, in the beginning of the game, get us on the scoreboard early. So Antonio Gibson, I think that he is flourishing in kind of this change of pace back kind of role. He's a lot more efficient on his runs. It looks like he's running a little bit harder. And yeah, just hopefully he keeps it up and they keep getting him involved in the passing game, because I think him getting involved in the passing game kind of builds his confidence in the running game as well. And when you got both of them clicking, like they were with
Both of
Antonio
them
Gibson,
clicking?
yeah, when you got both clicking at the same time with Gibson, it's definitely bodes well for this offense. So keep giving him involved.
Yeah, and then speaking last week, remember when I had the reaction to Nate giving the secondary a D, and I said, "Oh Lord," I wasn't trying to act a certain way. That was literally my reaction because I had just given them a B minus, and then when he came with the D grade, I was like, "Oh my goodness!" Like I was expecting that bust to hit me in the side of the face. But the other one,
just keep digging yourself in. You weren't expecting to get busted in the side of the face.
No, get hit by a bus.
Oh, I thought you said you weren't expecting bus to hit you in the side of the face. I was like, what kind of analogies are you using?
I'm all over the place right now. It's Victory Monday. Leave me alone. But the other one is Tress Way. I think the whole special teams unit deserves a game beer for this. I think this is a total team win. Going down to the defense, doing what they needed to do to be able to stifle Aaron Rodgers, only giving up 38 rushing yards. That was one of the biggest points of emphasis for me, was this going against Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. Being able to nullify them and making sure they couldn't dictate the game like the running game has in later times of these games this season. Right. And so the fact that they were able to do that, also the special teams, man, just absolutely awesome. That fumble recovery, that is exactly what we kind of need. And I love this quote from Rivera in his presser today. He said that Tress Way has weapons. I'm not sure exactly what those weapons are. I'm glad that he has worked on it. I'm glad that he is a guru in kicking of the football, because it pays dividends, my friend.
Yeah.
Entire special teams, everybody drink a beer, even you, Cheeseman, with the mustache.
Also about the defense, I mean, not giving up a single third down the entire game.
0 for 6 on third down, which
0 for 6 on third down.
They were 31st in the NFL last year in third downs. This year, they're second in third down percentage. I mean, just a massive turnaround. Go ahead, Hall. What were you about to say?
I was going to say, it just goes to show you how much ball control they had as well, because for Green Bay to only have 6 third downs throughout the whole game is just
time of
crazy.
Dominated time of possession. Green Bay had
second quarter, it seemed like they didn't even have the ball.
Just south of 23 minutes, the Green Bay Packers had, where the Commanders had over 37 minutes, a 15-minute difference, roughly, loosely.
I will say, we talked about
basically
the special teams 2 weeks in a row playing very good on the punt unit, but I am going to have to give some yard work to a certain special teams member. That's because he's really the only person I could find who really messed up glaringly, and that is old Joey Sly over there.
Yep.
Stop bench pressing and start working on your accuracy, okay? Because you're doing this too much, and I like you. I think you're a nice guy, and you could probably beat me up. But start making field goals, because that could have been huge.
Yeah, Joey is a tank, and that definitely was a difference in the game. It was really cool.
Ultimately, it didn't matter, but
I definitely do think it was a total team win. It was really cool to see it all the way around. Our guy Tyler Larson doing a good job up front, doing the best that he can.
When is he coming back on? Because we need to thank him. He used to come on like at least once a month, and the O-line looks completely different with him in there. Like him filling in for Chase. It's been amazing.
I wouldn't go that far. I
would the last 2 weeks, man. They've looked very good with Tyler in there.
You're very right. You're very right. I just meant this week, I think a lot of the blame that has been placed on the offensive line through the first 7 games is because of the quarterback not doing a lot in the pocket. And
100%.
And that's my whole thing, is that was my whole RG3 argument the past couple weeks. I didn't want to say the offensive line was horrible, because you don't know what's really going on, and if Taylor comes in, the sacks evaporate. Who is the fault at that point? You know what I'm saying?
You got to think also, it's definitely like also a lot on Wentz, but it's also the whole interior of the offensive line has been changed.
Played like
I don't want to say
the past couple weeks.
I don't want to say it's strictly because of
it's a combination of things for sure. It's just
it was definitely
maybe it's
Wentz
coincidence,
more, but I'm just saying like Norwell and Trey Turner were horrible. So
right. No, yeah, for sure.
Part of it as well.
But last year, the same thing happened, whereas as soon when Larson was in there, the offensive line didn't really miss a beat. When he went out, then it was kind of a little bit rocky towards the end there. So I think Larson is a perfect backup and really knows this system.
Yeah, he does. He does. And the reason why I didn't want to say that about Carson, because, like, obviously the offensive line being injury riddled, they were giving up pressures, but that's what got to Carson. But the fact is, Carson has to be able to adapt to that situation, and that's what I was more talking about. I understand that it's not all on Carson because the offensive line should be able to do their job and make him feel comfortable. But to an extent, you also have to work with me a little bit. But we are now joined by the Hollywood of the South, Mr. Street Scores Rico. How you doing, brother? Good to see you.
I'm good. How are y'all, man?
It's a victory
A lot
Monday,
better,
brother.
Yeah.
Hey, we
Hey,
just
finally.
yeah, dude.
A lot better
seriously.
than last time we spoke.
Yeah.
we're
I mean,
not-
the victory Friday after the Bears game, it didn't even feel like a victory Friday. It just felt like a, everyone
We
was
lost
still
the
pissed
least.
off.
yeah.
Especially after that last play, everyone still considered it a loss. But Street Scores, I want to get your game beers. We give out game beers to players that deserve to kick their feet up and enjoy their Monday because they worked hard and did well yesterday. I said Taylor Heinecke. Hall said Antonio Gibson. Reed said Terry
Jack Del
McLaurin.
Rio. No,
Or Jack Del Rio. I'm sorry. So who's getting your game beer, Street?
To add to the Jack Del Rio point, I just feel like he put a lot of guys in good situations. But if I had to pick a player, I really like what I see from Benjamin St. Juice.
Yeah.
His transition to the outside has been very good. I mean, pass breakups. He's still working on not being too handsy, and we kind of got some type of foreshadowing of that in the training camp. He was handsy in practice, and they kept saying, like, in games you won't be able to get away with that. And he's gotten called for a couple of penalties, but I felt like he played very well against the Packers. Now, granted, they did drop some easy catches that they should have had, but I feel like Benjamin St. Juice has stepped up big time as a third-round pick that barely even played his rookie season. I think the sky's the limit for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And another guy, Wild Goose, I think deserves credit. I think he has been playing very well. I know he had that one flag that was at a very bad time, but he was playing his heart out, man. And sometimes it's hard to get calm down when the bullets are flying. But I think for the kid to come out of nowhere and to continue playing well from the slot, a lot of credit to him and Coach Chris Harris for getting him up to speed.
With the greatest last name ever, too.
Yeah.
And somebody that I can't believe we haven't said yet, I guess because it's too obvious, but Terry. I mean, that everybody wants to talk about the touchdown, and that was huge. But that final reception along the sidelines, like when Taylor Heinecke threw that,
he threw it with his eyes closed.
I was going to say, you see his eyes were closed on that?
I feel Terry was not letting anybody else come down with that ball. Like, you knew when that was in the air, Terry was. It didn't matter what happened, didn't matter who got a hand on it, didn't matter. Terry was going to come down with it, and he's just that dude. He was.
Me when he threw that ball, I went from "Oh my God, the game is over" to "Oh my God, Terry caught it. We won."
It was so weird. This is like the first time in a long time where like I wasn't that worried. Once we went up, I really wasn't that worried for some reason. Like usually I'm like, great, we're gonna lose this lead in the next few minutes. Even when Green Bay scored, I was like, our defense is playing well enough. They get the ball back.
Yeah,
I'm not too worried about it.
No, just the way that it came out, it just floated there.
Yeah.
I was like,
no, I know. Yeah, it was definitely a lame duck. Once I saw 17 coming back towards the ball, though, I was like, okay,
that's the point I had with Carson, where he wasn't comfortable with the offense, so he wasn't like throwing balls to where guys are gonna be. He was throwing the balls where the guys were, and that Taylor Heinecke thing with his eyes closed, he knows where Terry's gonna be at. That's the kind of comfortability to the offense. Sorry, Street Scores. I know you got something to say.
Oh, I just wanted to add to the fact that I love this new passion from Terry. I mean, I do consider myself a rather calm guy, but he's screaming at people. He was letting Jair Alexander
after that
hear
touchdown when he came off the field.
Ooh. Yes,
Jair was talking a lot during that game, especially in that first half. He was talking a lot.
Oh yeah.
A lot.
And so Terry let him have it. I mean, that actually made my eyes tear up a little bit, like watching that. Like that. Like it made me want to run on the field and make a play. I absolutely love it. Y'all, I'm like a Chad Johnson. I'm big on trash talk, Cam Newton, Pac-Man Jones. So to see Terry starting to form into like a little bit more. I mean, it started in the training camp, started a little bit last season, talking a little bit of trash. But the way he was on the sideline, taking his helmet off, ripped it off, yelling at everybody, like, we can win this. Like, they're not better than us type of thing. I absolutely love that. He came in as like a humble sort of leader, quiet, soft-spoken.
Right.
Now he's starting to turn into that real vocal leader, stepping up big time while Chase Young is out.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. He came in as Marvin Harrison on the field, and right now he's like Marvin Harrison off the field. Little known fact, Marvin Harrison.
Who knew Marvin Harrison was an OG?
Nobody expected it. Nobody expected
it. Let's go to our fan questions. This one's from the Colonel. Street Scores. I want to get your opinion on this. Would you guys please comment on where you see us going at quarterback now that we've reeled off 2 straight wins? Are we still hopeful about Carson, or are we going to save the draft pick next year and go in a drastically different direction?
It's hard to just sit a quarterback after he won you a game like that. I mean, granted, the first half was but the second half he came back. and he rallied the team. So when this team will run through a brick wall for him, and it's just hard to sit that. I mean, you saw how much fun guys were having after the game, getting the cheese head from the crowd and then taking it to the locker room. Yes. Everybody taking pictures of it and videos with it. And guys love, I mean, you saw the picture of Jonathan Allen holding Taylor Heinecke like they just got married. Right. Like, I mean, it's just, you can't, it's an infectious energy that you just can't sit. And I'm really excited about Howell and seeing what he does at some point, but it's really hard to sit Heinecke at this point. Unless he goes out there and has a few bad games in a row, I think it's really hard to move on from him right now. Yeah. And plus that draft pick, you don't want it to go from a third to a second for no reason. You can get rid of Carson Wentz after the season for literally no dead cap.
Yeah, you know I've always been a Taylor Heinecke supporter. I've always had his back. But I'm not ready for that conversation. It is only one game. We need consistency out of the quarterback. And I love Taylor for winning this game yesterday, but we need consistency, and that's what I'm looking forward to. So once we can get that consistency, depending on how this season goes, then we'll talk about it. But for the time being, let's take it 1 week at a time, and let's hope Taylor Heinecke get the offense rolling against the Indianapolis Colts to get us a victory. Because the Sam Erlanger thing, I think there's something to that. It's very weird, the timing of all of this, and I'm wondering if they know something we don't about Sam Erlanger. Maybe he might be legit. I'm not sure. I watched a couple of his games. He doesn't really blow you away, but he knows where to go with the football. So I'm wondering what the.
He's also a lot more athletic than Carson Wentz. I'm sorry.
I saw something that Albert Breer tweeted out, or like someone quoted Albert Breer saying that majority of the scouts in the NFL think that Matt Ryan's arm is shot. So like that, I think that has a lot of it to do with it as well. Like I think the Colts kind of realize like. Yeah, he can't move in the pocket. His arm's shot. Like, yeah, it is what it is.
I mean, yeah, he's played terrible. But very nice guy. Yeah, terrible quarterback right now, though. But yeah, I mean, at the moment, I mean, like Rivera said, you kind of just got to take it game by game. I mean, it is what it is. You can't sit Taylor yet. I mean, with what he's offered at the same time, I'm sure after week 1, we would have said the same thing about Carson Wentz because he looked very good for 2 quarters in week 1, and they came out zooming. But right now, man, you just got to go with a hot hand, and we haven't been winning. And Taylor Heinecke going in there for whatever reason, man, the players seem to rally around him. They really seem to like him. So I think right now,
Shane Falco, bro. Sometimes
way cooler, way much more doper though, you know. And then next season, who knows what's gonna happen? But I think that it's good that we have an easy out with Carson where you don't take any cap hit. And I do think that obviously you want to bring in that franchise guy. So this is a good year if you need a quarterback. So hopefully they can make something happen.
All right, Street Scores. Last question from the Colonel. The Packers did not convert on 3rd down yesterday. They were 0 for 6. What is going on with our defense? Why have they been so inconsistent when they perform as solid as they did against Aaron Rodgers? Are you guys sensing that something may be gelling with the team finally? Better late than never, but good Lord, this is hypertensive.
Well, first of all, I mean, getting Chase Young back is only going to help. But I think one of the main things is that we're leading the league right now in pass rush win rate when only rushing 4 and not blitzing. And that's helping us keep 7 on the back end in coverage. I mean, because, Cole Holcomb and Jamin Davis aren't the best in coverage, but when they have help, I mean, things just work out. They're starting to communicate better. They're starting to get a better feel. William Jackson, we brought a man cover corner in to run a lot of zone. And now that he's, gone, it just seems like things are falling into place a little bit more. Even though I feel like William Jackson's been used as a scapegoat, and I honestly feel like he wasn't even worse than Kendall Fuller to an extent. But when you're running more zone, ultimately it just seems like the defense is gelling better. And most NFL defenses are running more zone than man. The Lions are one of the very few teams trying to actually run man primarily right now. And it just seems like with being able to rush 4 and still get pressure, F.A. Abada has been lights out the rare times that he comes in. Everybody's stepping up big time.
Played well too.
Two Hills played well in limited snaps. I think it starts with the defensive line, but also the communication and the continuity in the secondary with guys that are familiar with each other. Even though we made a couple of changes at corner, I think the safeties are holding it down. I feel like Bobby McCain also gets a little bit too much blame as well.
He did, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Is something gelling? I think that they are finally getting comfortable with themselves. Like for 2 straight games, you've seen them play a certain style of football. And I don't think that we've ever really seen that from this defense, right? It's usually something, one or another, something going wrong. The fact that they have been so, not dominant, but aggressive in everything that they do, it definitely seems like they're finally comfortable where they're at. and which is a great thing for this defense, especially given that they are relatively healthy at the moment, but they still have other guys to plug in here that could help out. I mean, Daniel Wise obviously still coming back a little bit there, and then Mathis obviously next season. But look, I'm really excited about this defense right now. Is there a factor in it with the offense that they're going against with injuries to Chicago and Green Bay? Without a doubt. I think what's going on with Matt Ryan is a lot what's going on with Aaron Rodgers to an extent with his injury to his finger. So I don't want to get ahead of myself, but they are playing like they should, and I want that dominance to continue. Because as long as that continues, as long as they're punching people in the mouth constantly, nobody's going to want to mess with them. And it's going to really create some turnovers because that's the other aspect of this. They got to create some turnovers. And generally, chaos is what that develops into.
Yeah, that was about to be my exact next point, too. Sorry just to cut you off, but I feel like the turnovers are the last step to this defense being elite. I would word them as suffocating right now. They don't give up much. As long as they limit the big plays, it's hard to convert first downs. It's hard to, score points. I feel like once they're able to create havoc and force turnovers, I feel like Chase Young is going to be a big part of that. I think that's when we can call our defense dominant and elite.
Yeah, I'm still pissed off about the tackling. Too many missed tackles on defense. Once they can clean up the tackles and the big plays, I think they're going to be at their highest.
Yeah, I think that they're starting to gel and they're starting to play complementary football on all three levels. Like
there's the word.
Yeah, the pass rush, the four linemen are getting the pass rush up there, which is helping the linebackers in the passing game as well. The D linemen are getting a push up front in the run game, which is helping the linebackers scrape, get off their blocks as well, fill the gaps quicker. The DBs on the back end are a little bit more covering them a little bit better, better communication, which is also helping the D line get to the quarterback as well. So I definitely think it's just like I said, they're all playing in unison, all playing as one. Like you said, the tackling has to get a little bit better. They're still giving up explosive plays here and there, but like you guys mentioned, for them to have 2 turnovers and the special teams has 2 turnovers, that's kind of like almost embarrassing. So that'll be the cherry on top. Once they start getting turnovers, maybe some forced fumble sacks and whatnot, stuff like that, I think that'll be just even better. And then, like you said, that'll be better for the offense because like field position and whatnot. So I just think that they got to definitely just keep on doing what they're doing and building on what they've been doing for the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Now, Reed, I want you to answer this next question from Scott Hartley in the UK. Oi!
Oi! Oi!
What contributed more to the win yesterday? Quarterback, wide receiver, O-line, or something else?
Well, I mean, it's a complete game. I think it's a complete team win. When we're talking about the game beers and who should go back and do some yard work, it was hard to pick somebody who you really thought didn't show up. And so the defense played fantastic, but we've seen that happen this season where the defense does enough and the offense just doesn't get it done. So I think having a quarterback back there that the guys could really rally around and trust to do the right thing with the football in the second half and put them in a good position, play ball control. I think that really having Taylor Heinecke back there probably made all the difference. And it's really nothing against Wentz. It's just with Wentz, it's so up and down. It's such a roller coaster. He'll make one bad decision and all of a sudden the game's screwed. So Taylor not getting too down on himself after the pick 6 and then coming back and playing his best football, I think was fantastic. I really think having Taylor back there is really what made the difference.
For me, Scott, what contributed more to the win yesterday based on quarterback, wide receiver, O-line, or something else? I'll go head coach. He's been piled on a whole bunch this season. The quarterback that he wanted came in here and delivered in 2 strikes to this team. One to the running back that he drafted that was very harped on. A lot of people went on about the fumbles. The other was a guy they gave a contract to. The center that they brought in from Carolina has come in and helped plug holes for them. Cornelius Lucas, Sadiq Charles, 2 guys that they brought in here and wanted to executed. So for me, and then the defense, Jamin Davis, Cam Curl, I think this wins for the head coach. That's what contributed more than anything for me.
And to add to that, I love this running back tandem. I feel like what they envisioned between Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson came to life yesterday. Right. But we can do that more consistently. But that one drive, I think our first touchdown scoring drive where Antonio Gibson ended it with a touchdown catch, that drive was on the backs of Antonio Gibson and Brian Robinson. And I think that gave Taylor Heinecke more confidence going into the game. I feel like it paid dividends long term. But that drive with Brian Robinson a couple of carries and even like I think a screen pass at one point game. Then Antonio Gibson, a couple of carries. You get tired of getting beat up by Brian Robinson. Now you're trying to, catch Antonio Gibson on the edge. I don't remember if it was on that drive or another drive where Antonio Gibson breaks like a 1 yard loss tackle and turns it into like a first down. And it's like you could tell the defense was starting to get tired having to deal with those two headaches.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Now, Hall, to answer this next question, this is from Tim Towner in our Discord chat server. What areas on O do you think are proving to be a strength and should be focused on? And what areas still need work? What are issues?
Mark, we talked about it with Mark Bullock earlier, the right side of the line in this game. I don't know. I haven't really I can't think back on top of my head in the last couple of games, but the right side definitely in this game was Sadiq Charles and Cornelius Lucas were having their struggles in the passing game. I mean, all year, honestly, this offensive line has kind of been mauling people in the run game for the most part. So they can definitely that's one thing they can keep building on and improving on is the run game. But one thing they need to improve on negative wise would be pass blocking. Because like I said, at the end of the day, Taylor is kind of like a smaller guy. He was getting pressured a lot in the first half, which led to the pick six and also led to the sack fumble, which ended up getting called back, luckily. So, yeah, I definitely think that the pass blocking needs to pick up a little bit, give him a little bit more time in the pocket, or give him a little bit more space in the pocket for him to work around a little bit. Like I said, he's a smaller guy, so the more that they can clear out the pocket and get it cleaner for him, the better his vision can be to get it to the playmakers, which in turn, obviously, I think Terry and Curtis Samuel are 14th and 15th ranked in the league right now as far as yards after the catch.
Yep.
With 105 and 108, something like that. So obviously getting the ball in the playmakers' hands in open space is the best thing for this offense right now. And do that, the pass blocking got to be a little bit up to par.
Of course, he had to steal every single freaking point out there, but I wholeheartedly agree with him. It's getting the ball to playmakers on the outside in their short yardage. Terry McLaurin and Curtis Samuel both had 8 targets each. Both had 5 receptions. One had 53 yards at Curtis Samuel. Terry McLaurin, obviously, 73 yards in the touchdown. The difference maker was that touchdown. It's getting the ball to the wide receivers, getting the playmakers. Curtis Samuel was at his best yesterday. His yards after the catch was able to get them a couple first downs. It's always fighting for it. Yeah, dude, it's a lot of fun to watch him play football, man. It really is. And getting the ball to playmakers, that's the strength for me, to be perfectly honest. What do you think, Rico?
I agree. I think right now our skill positions are the strength of our offense. And I mean, I feel like the offensive line does need some improvement. Honestly, I would love to see Cosme at guard potentially and just to see how that. And I've liked what I've seen from Sadiq Charles, but I just think he could be an all-pro at guard because it limits the struggles he would have in pass protection, trying to block on the outside and things like that. And then it would just keep him in a smaller area to work with. And with him being the mauler that he is and the aggressive blocker that he is, I think he could end up being like an all-pro right guard. So I would be really interested in seeing how that may work. But it's also the logic is if you could play tackle and guard, you prefer that guy at tackle because that's more of a premium position. Right. So I would just like to see us experiment with that at some point in the season. But obviously our playmakers right now, including the running backs, and I think when the tight ends are fully healthy, we'll have a full arsenal of just skill position players that can really take over games. You can give them the ball 3 yards and expect them to get the last 7. I think we have a bunch of guys like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, real fast, hold up, just to add on to that real fast. That's kind of the difference, I think, with Taylor Heinecke this year as opposed to last year. We know last year the struggles and stuff that he had, but this year you surround him with playmakers and maybe you kind of let this guy build a little bit and cook, give that chef some ingredients in the kitchen. I mean,
now Reed, if you want to answer this question from Orange Crush in our Discord chat server, do you like the 2-back approach we have been taking these past couple games with Robinson and Gibson, and how much has that attributed to our success these past couple games?
Yeah, I mean, I think Rico kind of touched on it when the two-headed monster, really, I mean, 3-headed monster because J.D. McKissick, but talking about those two, Gibson and Brian Robinson, there's no break for the defense almost. It's and they still haven't reached their potential yet. I mean, they can keep going more and they can be better, honestly, but having to tackle Brian Robinson, who's a handful, and then he goes to the sidelines, and then you bring in Antonio Gibson, who's also a handful. He's a big boy and he's lightning fast. So it's a headache. And I really think that they could be better. I think that they will be better once they get a little bit more confidence and they're used a little bit better, and they start getting going. But yeah, I really think that you got to feel good about this running back room, man. There's a lot of potential there.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with you.
I don't remember the question, but that's my
I
answer.
agree with you that I really do like the two back set that they've been using. I do think it has attributed to a lot of what they are doing because it just adds the playmakers out there. Because Brian Robinson is used early on to kind of like that tough mindset to kind of get the offensive line going, to be able to move guys around because Brian Robinson is an aggressive runner. And then Antonio Gibson comes off and then hits you with like fire, like lightning and thunder, right? Essentially. And what was the nickname we gave them? The running back room early on, Earth, Wind, and Fire with them, and that's exactly what they're doing with this. I've been very impressed with Antonio Gibson this past week. I thought his vision was very good. It's almost like he's picking up things from Brian Robinson. Like he sees how Brian Robinson hits things, and it's like he's no hesitation anymore. He sees how it's supposed to be run, and you saw it yesterday. It paid dividends. He had a couple big break runs that really helped out this team on the stretch. What do you think, Rico?
I completely agree. I love that point about Antonio Gibson becoming a better running back, just being around Brian Robinson, seeing him do it day in, day out in practices and things like that. I mean, Antonio Gibson is so athletic, and he could easily be like a premier running back in the league. And to have Brian Robinson, in addition to that, to take some load off of him, because, I mean, it seems like he usually fumbles when he starts to get tired. When we will run him like six times in one drive, that seventh time, hey, but better watch out. He may fumble. He's a little fatigued, but now you have Brian Robinson that can carry the load. And I didn't like the disparity between their carries. I think it was the Titans game. Brian Robinson had like double digits. Antonio Gibson had like 3. I liked what we did better in this game where it was like 20-10, but also Antonio Gibson had some touches in the passing game. And I love what I'm seeing from him in the kickoffs as well, providing a little bit of explosion.
Absolutely, dude. And then I just think they're doing a great job with everything. I mean, getting Antonio Gibson out in space in the red zone, being able to run that post route for him, Taylor looking off the safety, like that's exactly what you want to do because the defense is so confused at this point. Why Antonio Gibson's out wide, they're not paying attention to him. They think he's going to run a shallow. You have no idea that he was a wide receiver in college, and the dude is actually very good route runner, can catch the football. That pays dividends right there, doesn't it? So I thought that was very well done by everybody. Hall, this next question from Orange Crush: has the offensive line been improving?
It's hard to say as of right now because it's still not really been the consistent guys up front for multiple games. And then you're still going to have Sam Cosmi coming back eventually. So I think maybe a couple games down the road, once they get Cosmi back and they got Tyler Larson, Charles Leno. Who's playing left guard again? I don't even remember right now.
Norwell.
Oh, Norwell is still in there. Jeez.
Well,
that's good.
Messed up.
It's actually crazy because, see, he's been kind of good lately. I forgot he was even in there. His name hasn't been called as much because he's getting beat. But, yeah, so I think that once you get a consistent 5 up there for a couple games, they start learning each other and they practice and everything, whatnot, getting the reps in practice, getting the game reps. I think that there'll be shades of last year because obviously everyone knows last year was a lot of plug-and-play guys, but they were still one of the top-ranked units in the league overall. But, yeah, obviously, like we talked about earlier as well, Carson Wentz not really being in the pocket, fading back, drifting back is going to help as well because Taylor's going to step up in the pocket. He's going to kind of move around in the pocket, give a little bit more time for the wide receivers and whatnot to get open. So, and he's going to hit the checkdowns and kind of the quick passes as well. So, I think just overall, just Taylor knowing the offense a little bit better is making the offensive line a little bit better.
Yeah, I agree with you. Now let's get to our last question in the Discord chat servers from our guy Andy Lockhart, and thank you, sir, in the UK. Oi! Street Scores, I want to go to you with this one first. It looks like Will Jack has been a main reason for the secondary being really bad. Wild Goose looking decent inside. Would you try to trade for a cornerback, a realistic one, to replace Fuller?
Wait, to replace Fuller?
Yeah.
Like in the future to save some money after we get rid of William Jackson potentially.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people are talking about getting my Georgia Bulldog Keely Ringo. I'm love his potential, but I mean he's just one of those guys. I think it's concentration issues. Like he'll lock up a good receiver and then he'll get blown by random receivers from Samford when we played them and things like that. I think it's just concentration. I think when he applies himself, he's pretty good, but it's a lot of mental issues there. But I think it would be smart. I mean, if William Jackson doesn't want to be here, the reports are conflicting. You save money there. Kendall Fuller, you let him go. Maybe you save money there, and then you can try to acquire a guy to replace them. But right now, the defense is clicking, so it's kind of hard for me to, try to fix what's not broken right now. Kendall Fuller actually looked pretty good yesterday. But future-wise, maybe we do want to look into, trying to replace those guys. Benjamin St. Juste stay outside, find another corner opposite of him while Goose in the slot. That saves you a lot of money to potentially pay like Deron Payne or Cole Holcomb, Cameron Curl with those contracts coming up. So I guess we'll see. But right now, I don't want to fix what's not broken. And again, I feel like William Jackson gets too much blame. But I mean, there's also just why did we bring in a man cover corner to try match coverage and zone coverage? Match coverage, one of the hardest coverages mentally to try to even teach a corner to do. Didn't do that in Cincy, and we brought him here, tried to get him to do it, didn't work out, and now where we are.
Yeah, I agree with you. I wouldn't make a trade, just specifically because of what Rico talked about, the continuity there. You're kind of sending a message that you don't believe in the guys in the roster, and that's not something you really want to do, but you should always be looking to get better. And we also have to look at this from the other side, Andy. Like, are there other teams that are hungry for corners? And the one that comes to mind is like somebody like Kansas City, who is hungry for a corner. They got some banged up guys. They're looking for a playoff run. So you're going to be having to negotiate with teams like that, who are obviously going to be having more assets to give up because of the short-term ramifications for them. Whereas rather for us, we're building towards the future, and it's harder to give out assets for that just for the future, so to speak. If that makes sense? I love Kendall. He's a VT boy. We interviewed him. I have a lot of respect for Kendall. He hasn't played like to his capabilities, but hopefully that does transpire. But I think that he was at his best in this past game. He's very good at busting up screens and short yardage throws, and he was doing that a lot yesterday.
I will say one team that always strikes me for William Jackson, of course, is Detroit, with how often that they play man, and just having another player across from Jeff Okudah, I think would make a lot of sense because he's talented. But to look forward, we're talking about, I mean, you talked about Kelly Ringo. Another player who I think would actually make a lot of sense for us, because I've been looking at corners lately, is Jalen Jones from Texas A&M. He's big. He's primarily a zone corner, and he's still athletic as hell. I mean, I think he had a 42-inch vertical or something when he was coming out of high school. And that dude can stay healthy. Watch out. He could be a very early round pick. But
the team that comes to mind for William Jackson III, that would be such a Bill Belichick thing to do. Is just plug up William Jackson III, plug him in as his CB1.
It'll work out for him, too, because it works out with them with every corner ever that they draft.
He got like Malcolm Butler to be like a top 5 paid cornerback in this league, which is
JC Jack. Everybody who he gets, it doesn't matter. They're going to – it's so weird.
It just makes sense that, Bill Belichick would trade a 7th rounder in 2025.
And he'll get an all-pro out of it.
Yeah, as far as this year goes, I don't think that I mean, if you can trade William Jackson for whatever you can get for him, then by all means, cool. Future draft picks, future assets. But as far as this year goes, I wouldn't really try to bring in someone to trade and upgrade from Kendall Fuller. Like Rico said, it kind of is what it is at this point. The defense is kind of locked in as far as the personnel on the roster, barring like any crazy injuries and whatnot. But as far as next year goes, yes, I would. Yeah, and whatnot. And but no, as far as next year goes, I would definitely the first 2-3 rounds, you're going to be drafting a cornerback more than likely. And I would try to bring in another veteran next year, maybe add a little more depth and have the rookie and the veteran guy you bring in kind of fight it out for that CB2, or you send Benjamin St. Juste CB2, and then you get another veteran CB1 or maybe a lockdown cornerback in the draft. But as far as this year goes, Kendall Fuller and St. Juste are probably going to be the 2 guys on the outside going forward.
Yeah. Do you see that Carolina that came out and said that J.C. Horn is not available? Like one of the
of course, he's been playing so well.
Teams are calling for him.
I know.
They're calling for everybody. Watch, Green Bay is going to make a move for DJ Moore.
Top players to go.
Yeah. Green Bay won't actually, because they never address wide receiver. It'll be like the Cowboys or something, and we'll be like, cool, or the Giants. We'll be like, cool, just what you guys needed.
We had a question from last week that I forgot on Thursday from one of our fans in the Discord chat server. I believe it was Yamstarch that asked it, or Digital Guru. Basically, if let's say a new ownership group would to come in and buy out Snyder and everybody, who is some Street Scores Rico, who is some families or people that you'd want to have get ownership?
I actually haven't even done any real research into that. I honestly don't. I don't want to just say like a random name. I mean, I've heard the Jeff Bezos rumors, but I'm not entirely. I do want a guy that loves football. I mean, that didn't work out with Dan Snyder, but I would prefer a guy that's heavily invested in the football team and is not in it only for the money. But I don't really have a good answer, honestly.
One person that I saw posted that would actually make a lot of sense is the co-founder of Reddit. His name's Alexis Ovahov, something like that. It's Alexis something. But he's from the area. He grew up in Maryland. He's apparently a huge DC sports fan. Apparently he has season tickets to the Commanders games, always goes there. And apparently he's somebody who I've seen his name tossed around. And plus, I mean, he's a co-founder of Reddit. So the dude's rich, but also the learners, of course. I mean, anytime.
No, please no. Please no. Please
Come on, Kyle. What about Peter Angelos? He's a nice guy.
You know he's going to pay the guy. You know he's going to pay his top players. For
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't get me started. Why you got to piss me off? The ownership group. I think Orange Crush made a very good point by saying the Marriott family. They're obviously in here locally. You could say I know my aunt works for Marriott, and we did their new headquarters in Bethesda. So they obviously, I think that's big. Knowing people already in the situation of building these new buildings, that's what gets the ball rolling for a new stadium, being able to have that relationship already. I think the Marriott family is very smart, but ultimately, I know it's stupid, I know it's crazy, but the fact is the best way for them to be able to remedy the situation is to allow 49% to go up to sale to the fan base, and strictly only the fan base, because you have a loss of connection with these fans.
So that way they can sell it to the Ravens after 4 games when they don't like the product on the field.
No, but and so you can make it like contract details and stuff. You know what I mean? But basically, when you have a fan base that's lost confidence in ownership, then allow them to be it. That would make them have responsibility. That would show the respect again. And you're trying to mend
our fan base responsibility. Are you joking me?
Well, no, the ones that actually can afford it, my dude. Like I'm talking about like Matthew McConaughey, Dale Earnhart Jr., Joe Gibbs, that type of stuff. I would absolutely love that.
Is that really the fan base? Because that's like not the common person's
Tom
fan
Cruise.
base. Like, that's just
trust me, we're gonna get in there. Don't worry. But I'm talking about the big guys.
Real fast, that Alexis Ohanian dude, the co-founder of Reddit, he's married to Serena Williams. That dude. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So
I thought you were joking. I was like, oh my goodness.
No.
If it ever comes to that, then I think because obviously the NFL is all about trying to be like diversity and whatnot nowadays, and I think that, and because this is DC, there's like used to be Chocolate City. I guess technically, it still is, but we can. This whole another conversation. But yeah, I think it'll be a black owner. They'll try to get a black owner in there, so. Whoever the richest black person is probably on
yeah, hell yeah.
Would that be Jay-Z?
Remember, he's his management team or whatever. Didn't his agency have some stuff to do with?
There's some people that work in the Commanders organization that used to work for Rock
Jay-Z's agency. Yeah. So yeah, that'd be tight. Or LeBron, Then he'd end up every 3 years. He'd change us.
I know Magic Johnson is interested in the Broncos. That's another guy to bring up. But I want it back to the fan base because
dude, real fast. Did you see the thing about Peyton Manning? Peyton's starting to get his company or whatever. I swear to God, his company's
that's my number one, dude. That's my number one.
Looking to buy an NFL franchise, and they're like making moves to slowly do that. Could you imagine if Peyton bought us?
Why would he attach his name to this frantage?
Because he can turn it around.
He can
just like he did with the Indianapolis Colts. Imagine,
that would be tight. Peyton Manning became that would be lit.
Because everybody media immediately that switch turns. It no longer is negative.
Everyone would love us. Everyone would have the funniest.
We would finally get calls.
Yeah.
We get ref calls. Referees will like us.
Yep, and people would want to actually play here because they'd be like, Peyton. Oh yeah, I'll play for that guy.
All right, everybody, that's gonna wrap us up for this episode. Street Scores, I can't thank you enough for joining us, brother. Before we get out of here, if you'd just like to plug your social media handles, just in case anybody watching hasn't followed you yet and would love to, even though we know they don't exist, because they already know.
Appreciate it, man.
They're already subscribed to you.
Thank you. You can find me on YouTube, Street Scores. You can find me on Twitter, Street Scores ATL. And man, like I said, anytime. I'm usually just busy like Thursdays and Fridays because of my show. But other than that, man, I love coming up here. I always learn something too. Like I always say, when I come up here, I always end up learning something. And I'm always happy to join y'all, man, for real.
I appreciate you, man. You're the best.
Appreciate
All right,
that.
everybody. That's going to wrap us up for this episode. We'll see you guys again on Thursday. Enjoy the victory week. You know, we've got Indy lining up this weekend. We got the Snyder versus Irsay showdown. I'm telling you, Snyder's going to show up in his Timbs and the black jeans. He's going to come with the puff jacket. He's ready, dude.
And Irsay's going to show up rubbing his nose real fast and stuff. He's
going to have a cold.
Drunk pulling into the stadium.
Like, dude, you have a cold 24/7. Do you need medicine?
Yeah, Snyder will be grabbing girls' asses and stuff.
Why are you always sniffling? All right, everybody, that's going to wrap us up for this episode. I appreciate everyone for all your questions that you brought in. Andy, Tim, obviously Scott Hartley, Orange Crush, the Colonel. Thank you guys so much. We really do appreciate it. All right, everybody, we'll see you on Thursday. Washington football. Woo! Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Kyle. I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. And if you liked what you saw, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. That way you get notified when anything new is uploaded to the channel. Also, we just launched theburgundyzone.com. You can go there and find all of our latest news, articles, and the latest episodes that are uploaded. Again, we also have the Discord chat server, where all of our VIP folks are in, like Andy Burrows, Scott Hartley, Sergio Martin is in there as well. Don't miss out on the Discord chat server. Go and check that out. Until next time, everybody, Washington football. Woo!